You know, I usually try to keep things pretty light and fun on this channel, but this video will be diving into a topic which is more relevant and maybe a little more serious. So serious in fact that it might affect the future of this channel. There's been an initiative going around the US and the UK as of late. An initiative to censor the internet and to basically put a ban on pornography. I was really hopeful that other sex ed YouTubers would be talking about this, but of course I came to find out that there isn't really any other sex education YouTubers, so I guess I should probably talk about it. What's happening? How do we protect the children? What is the Online Safety Act? Now, I am no expert in interpreting law or creating new laws that actually work, so I'll be doing my best to go over what this is, but yeah, keep in mind I am not an expert. To put it simply, the Online Safety Act is an attempt to curb minors' exposure to the most harmful parts of the surface world internet. This includes, but is not limited to, content and algorithms pushing messages related to eating disorders, content that may cause depression or even suicide, and pornography. The intention of these laws is great. I definitely support anyone who wants to limit their child's exposure to things like social media. And of course, I think limiting a minor's access to adult sites is paramount to having a good generation of good people. But make no mistake, the way they're going about it is 1. Harmful to free speech, 2. Dangerous for the leaking of private data, and 3. Isn't even going to work. The Online Safety Act will mandate adult sites to adopt an age verification system for their sites, usually by uploading your ID through their site. Pornhub has had to implement this in several states, where their traffic dropped by 80%. Wait, does this actually work? No, people in those states have not stopped watching porn. What's happened is they've been forced to use other, less regulated sites. Or they just get a VPN, one of the two. Let's be clear. The attempt to restrict pornography has not, and will not, work. I won't get too far into the politics of this issue, but if you ask me, it's an attempt to restrict the flow of information online and eventually gatekeep information regarding LGBTQ issues, among many other things. But this is not a political video, this is a video about what this means for sexuality specifically. All of this is being done to protect the children. This broad sentiment is important, but right now it's being used to constrict sexuality into something that it can't be. It's essentially what I talked about in my video about Catholic sexual repression, but on a larger scale. Trying to constrict sexuality only makes things worse, and criminalizing the act of expressing your sexuality is going to push people to more extreme places, like unregulated sites hosting more dangerous and illegal content. If you think Pornhub is bad, other sites are actually dangerous. You know, if your goal was to expose children to more intense and illegal adult content, you have certainly achieved that. What causes panic in all of these scenarios is the involvement or possible involvement of children in these spaces. I don't think anybody disagrees with the fact that yes, children should not be in these spaces on any adult site whatsoever. If you read into it, Pornhub is fully behind the initiative to get kids off of these sites. But so often does porn get lumped in with information regarding sexual health of any kind. Anything that has to do with sex is now harmful, when that really can't be further from the truth. As uncomfortable a subject as it is, it's important for anyone of any age to be able to access information about sexuality for free. It's a fundamental part of the human experience. We've seen what happens when you limit access to this information. If you have a teenager, and you don't teach them what a condom is, they're still going to have sex. They just won't do it safely. The issue here, parents and lawmakers think they can control when and how a person will have a sexual encounter. And the truth is they can't do that. As a counter to this, the goal of channels like mine is to provide free, accessible, and vetted information to anyone who might need it. Similar to how pharmacies can't deny someone the purchase of a condom based on age, would you rather they do it unprotected? Of course, I sympathize with parents who are trying to protect the innocence of their children. but you can't neuter the internet because you don't know how to activate parental controls. You know there's something called YouTube Kids, right? Although, I don't know if I would encourage parents to turn that on for their kids. I think it's better to limit screen time in general for very young children. If you really want to be overprotective of your kids to the point where they're at higher risk for abuse in their adult life because they never learned about this stuff at all, I suppose that's your right. You're the parent, not me. But then you actually need to learn how to activate these parental controls. Here's the thing about policing sexuality in online spaces. It's damn hard. You know, this stuff is very, very complicated, and there are so many gray areas. But I can't force anyone to constrict to my view of sex. That's not how this works. All I can do is lead by example. My goal with this channel is to show you my own sexual journey. As a straight guy, my path to becoming a complete person. Your path is gonna look much different than mine, but I will provide you with what I believe to be good messages, and you can make that decision for yourself. This sentiment also relates to dating. I know some people who approach dating in a kind of backwards way. They look for what they want physically first, and then at things like personality later. Both men and women do this, by the way. Really anyone. You know, I may disagree with this way of thinking, and I may find it damaging to both you and your potential partner, but I can't really force you to change the way you do it. What I can do is lead by example, and provide reasoning and resources for why I think my way is better. And I think this is how we need to start looking at problems like pornography, and laws that try to restrict it. We can't make people stop watching porn. We just can't. We invented it, we can't put it back in the box. But we can introduce programs that show its harmful effects. I don't even hate the idea of putting warning labels on porn like we do with cigarettes. If you're an adult, you should have the right to buy a cigarette. It's encouraging you to find a different method. But we've already learned that banning these things doesn't work. And you might call me out on this and say, well, they're not banning pornography specifically, they're just requiring an ID check. That's true. But giving a cashier your ID and them giving it right back is not the same as giving it to a third-party website. Only one of these scenarios has your data being sold to data brokers. It's unacceptable to expect all of these websites to be able to hold on to that information securely. What I'm proposing here is a much more difficult solution. It would be so easy to just try and pass a law restricting pornography in general. But we all know it wouldn't get people to stop watching porn. It's prohibition all over again. When they forced people to stop drinking, did they stop? No. They found other methods of creating alcohol, leading to much more sickness in this unregulated market. You could even make an argument for bringing porn more into the mainstream. Make it normal to discuss sexuality with people around you. That sounds like a radical solution, but when something like that is normalized, it becomes regulated, and people hold each other accountable. Will there always be people who take sexuality too far? Of course. But if we were all open about our own sexuality, we would have a natural system of checks and balances that keeps people accountable if they, for example, begin to develop a dangerous or immoral fetish. I think I should call out the fact that Pornhub has actually pitched an alternative idea, device-based verification. Basically how this would work is you confirm your age with your ID once to your phone. This automatically determines your access to sites like Pornhub, and will only change once you have passed the legal age. It's still not a perfect system, you're still giving your data to these big phone companies once, but it's better than having your data shattered across 100 different third-party sites, most of which won't have nearly as well of a handle on security of your personal data. We'll see if they go for it, but if their actual goal is to protect the children, this is the best way. At least, that's what I think. I apologize for this slapdash rant kind of video, but I felt that it was important to talk about. You should also do your own research on the Online Safety Act. I don't even hate some of its other goals, but trying to outright ban pornography is too restrictive, because that is what they're trying to do. If you look into the actual politics of this issue, it's been confirmed. That's the ultimate goal here. But to cap this off, I want to read this excerpt from the Woodhull Foundation. Sexual freedom is a fundamental human right. It is at the heart of human dignity, equality, and civil liberties embodied in both the US Constitution and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Human sexuality cannot be prescribed or legislated, and is a natural, fundamental, and precious aspect of life. Only when we acknowledge, protect, and celebrate sexual freedom can we realize human rights as a whole. This goes for men. This goes for women, gay, straight, non-binary, trans, everybody. Everybody deserves the right to sexual freedom. It's possible to do both. That's all I wanted to say. I love you all. Good night.